Imagine living in a time when computers were just starting to make waves, not just in technology, but also in how we think about the human mind. This was the mid-20th century, and a quiet revolution was brewing in the field of psychology. It was called the cognitive revolution, and it changed the way we understand ourselves in profound ways. But what led to this big shift? To understand that, we need to rewind a bit. Before cognitive psychology came along, behaviorism ruled the world of psychology. Behaviorists believed that the only way to truly study people was by observing their actions. The thought was, we can't see what's going on in their heads, so why bother? Psychology at that time was all about what people did, how they acted or reacted, and not so much about why they did those things. But over time, some psychologists started to feel like something was missing. They realized that if they only studied behaviors, they weren't really getting the full picture. What about all the thoughts, memories, and decision-making processes happening inside the mind? That's when cognitive psychology burst onto the scene, offering a new way to look at things. This new approach didn't reject behaviorism. It simply added another layer, focusing on what was happening behind the scenes in the mind. Cognitive psychology asks questions like, how do we learn? Or how do we remember things? It's not just about what we do, but how our brain helps us get there. For example, when you learn a new skill or solve a problem, it's not just about the final action you take. It's about the steps your mind goes through to make it happen. One of the most famous metaphors that cognitive psychologists use is comparing the human mind to a computer. Back in the early days, this was a pretty basic idea, much like the first computers. The brain was seen as something where information, input, goes in, gets processed, and a response, output, comes out. But as technology got more advanced, so did our understanding of how the brain works. Today, with cloud computing and complex neural networks, cognitive psychology has expanded its metaphors, viewing the brain as something much more dynamic, like a network of systems all working together. At its heart, cognition is simply about knowing, how we gather, store, and use knowledge. That's why cognitive psychology is such a huge part of other areas of psychology too. Think about social psychology, for instance, where we explore how our thoughts influence how we interact with others. Or developmental psychology, which looks at how our mental processes grow and change as we age. If you've ever heard of Piaget's stages of development, that's a great example of cognitive psychology at work. But something interesting happened as psychology grew. Rather than different approaches competing with one another, they began to work together. In the past, one school of thought might try to completely replace another. But now, many areas of psychology overlap and inform each other, creating a more complete picture of the human mind. One of the best examples of this is cognitive neuroscience. In the early days, cognitive psychologists weren't that interested in the brain's physical structure. They focused on mental processes, how people think, learn, and remember. But with advances in brain imaging technology, like functional magnetic resonance imaging scale and positron emission tomography scan, everything changed. Suddenly, psychologists could actually see the brain in action while a person was thinking, solving problems, or remembering. It was like being able to watch the gears turn in a clock you could previously only hear ticking. This breakthrough gave birth to cognitive neuroscience, a field that blends the study of the mind with the study of the brain. Now, instead of just guessing how people's minds work based on their behaviors, scientists can literally watch neurons firing and memories forming in real time. So what's the big takeaway here? Well, the history of cognitive psychology teaches us that the more different fields of study work together, the better we understand the human mind. Whether it's understanding how we learn, how we remember, or how we solve problems, psychology is no longer just about observing from the outside. It's about exploring the rich and complex inner workings of our brains. Next time you find yourself recalling a memory or trying to solve a tricky problem, remember, your brain isn't just working like an old computer spitting out answers. It's an incredible, ever-evolving network of processes, constantly shaping how you think, learn, and interact with the world. If you found this interesting, feel free to share it with a friend, leave a comment, and subscribe to keep exploring the fascinating world of the mind with us. Make sure to check out our other videos on various interesting topics. Thanks for watching.